one of the arguments we hear coming from the new type of atheist. When I was a child, I believed in Santa Claus. When I was a child, I believed in the Tooth Fairy. But then one day I grew up and I realized that Santa Claus doesn't exist. I realized that the Tooth Fairy doesn't exist. And in the same manner, one day I grew up and I realized that God doesn't exist. I've always found that line of argumentation rather funny because to me it seems completely absurd to say Santa Claus doesn't exist because obviously Santa Claus exists.
You know, I'm just gonna keep the hat like this, right? There's no problem with that. Put in the comments if you hate this. Nothing wrong with this. Hey, what's up everybody? Commander Radix here bringing you another video. And today, I'm going to explain how Santa Claus exists. Because it seems to me that, obviously, Santa Claus exists. So this video is sort of my own take on the issue of the existence of Santa Claus, inspired by a video done by the Orthodox Christian icon carver, Jonathan Pajot. He made a video many moons ago about how Santa Claus exists. Now, I agree with a lot of what he says, but I think there are some places where I think I would have worded things a little bit differently. So that's why I'm making this video, to sort of give my take on the question of does Santa Claus exist? However, this is purely inspired by Jonathan Pajot's video. I highly recommend everyone check it out if you haven't yet. There will be a link in the description. There will also be a link to a song edit version of the Santa Claus Exists video. But in that video, Jonathan makes the point that you see so many times people say something along the lines of,
you know, I believe in God and Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, but over time I realized that Santa Claus doesn't exist, and then the Tooth Fairy doesn't exist, and then it just seemed natural to me to take the next step of the idea that God doesn't exist.
You go from believing that there is an old man who sees everything sitting in the North Pole, who knows if you're doing good or bad, but also there's this divine creator that sees everything and knows if you're doing good or bad, and then you get blatantly told that one of them doesn't exist. So, like, it's not so much of a stretch to say the other one doesn't exist, right? But you guys know me, you guys know that I am a Christian, I believe in God, and, you know, the question is, oh, Radix, you believe in God, you believe in a magic being that knows what everything you're doing and if it's good or bad. Do you also believe in Santa Claus? Yes. And I will explain why. I will explain why I'm not insane. So first and foremost, we have to ask ourselves the question, who is Santa Claus? Is he a morbidly obese old man of questionable European ethnicity who lives in the North Pole with a bunch of machine elves that he got when taking DMT? Possibly. But when you look up the history of Santa Claus, it will almost certainly direct you to one Saint Nicholas of Myra. And here I have a icon of Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker, whose feast day is December 6th. Oh, when did I upload this video? Doesn't seem like much of a coincidence, huh? I could have planned this far ahead, right? It's almost like I'm recording this on November 21st. But anyway, who is Saint Nicholas of Myra? Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker. He is a saint in the Christian church. He's in, well, basically every church, every denomination that believes in saints considers Saint Nicholas to be a saint. He's very early in the history of Christianity. And there's a lot of different stories regarding Saint Nicholas. For example, one famous incident is that he was at I believe it was the First Council of Nicaea, which was, part of it was dealing with the heresy of Arianism from Arius, and then Saint Nicholas punched him. So there's that story. But yeah, there's a lot of stories about him stopping someone from getting beheaded, things like that. The story we're going to focus on is a story about how There was a family with 3 daughters, and in order to survive, the father considered selling the 3 daughters into prostitution to make money because they weren't going to be able to survive in any other way. Saint Nicholas, when he heard this, gathered up some money, put a lot of gold coins into sacks, which is what I guess you did back then. And then every night for 3 nights he would throw sacks of money, sacks of gold coins into the windows of the family's house, with the idea of this money should be used to pay for the 3 girls' dowry, so they don't have to go into prostitution. Instead, they can get married, right, and start families. And because of that, Saint Nicholas is associated with things like gift giving in secret, with children, protecting children, right, and families. But yeah, very important early Christian saint. And so on his saint day, on his feast day, December 6th, it was customary in a lot of Europe that on December 6th you would give gifts, especially to children. So December 6th was sort of a gift-giving day in commemoration of the gift-giving of Saint Nicholas. There's a bit of a problem, though, because not long in that same month is December 25th. And December 25th is the day of Christmas, the feast of the Nativity of our Lord Jesus Christ. So historically, while you would give gifts to children, or while someone maybe dressed up as Saint Nicholas would give gifts to children on St. Nicholas Day, on December 25th it would be a more direct gift giving. Not, this came from St. Nicholas, this is coming from me, right? And St. Nicholas Day is more associated with children. But over time, since you have 2 gift-giving days in one season, 1 month, weeks from each other, over time, these traditions and these days start to merge, especially when we get things like the Protestant Reformation. You're getting new sects later on that are going to question the validity of the communion of saints, or what exactly the communion of saints is, so commemorating St. Nicholas isn't really on their to-do list. But you don't want to say, hey kids, we don't believe that you can pray to people in heaven anymore, so that holiday where we give you special gifts? We're cutting it out, right? You don't look like the good guy in that situation. So over time, St. Nicholas Day is going to have its characteristics, its gift-giving to children under the guise of St. Nicholas tradition. It goes into Christmas. And over time, the character, the being, the saint of St. Nicholas is going to change into what we will call today Santa Claus. Now, there's a lot of traditions. This is not an origin of the Santa Claus myth story. This is not what this video is about. We're not going to talk about all the Father Christmases, and we're not going to talk about his black servant in the Netherlands. We're just making the obvious connection that Santa Claus is a depiction, sort of almost mythologized, iconographic depiction of Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker. So now you might say, okay, so Santa Claus is based on Saint Nicholas, who was a real person in history. Okay, but is that what you mean when you say Santa Claus exists? You're saying that he's a character based off a person that existed? Hold on just a minute, because now we need to talk about what happens when you die. So I'm going to explain a sort of simplified, because it's a very big topic, but a simplified look at my tradition, the Orthodox Christian tradition, and its view on death, the afterlife, and sainthood, and what exactly a saint is. So what is a saint in the Orthodox Christian tradition? So, Orthodox Christians, we have the answer to the meaning of life. This is getting surprisingly deep for a video about Santa Claus. In Christianity, there is the idea that God created mankind to share creation with them. God, as a being of love, wanted to create creatures that could love him voluntarily, and also sort of share in his creation. They were made in the image of God. However, we have the fall of man, sin, because almost as a consequence of free will, and now, long story short, now humans can die. I am probably going to make a video summarizing the story of the Bible, the story of Christianity, specifically focusing on salvation history. I don't have enough time to go into it in this video about Santa Claus. But at the end of the day, for humans, when we die, if we have been righteous, if we have been judged just, by the supreme judge, which is God, Christ, right? Then we get to go into heaven, and we get to achieve what is called theosis. Now, in Protestantism, it's more of a focus on something called salvation. Orthodoxy, it's more focused on something called theosis. They're basically talking about the same thing in Protestantism, and it's not to say that the word doesn't exist in Orthodox Christianity, but salvation is sort of focusing on being saved from the fires of hell. Theosis is more focusing about what you become when you enter heaven. Now, theosis literally means to become God, or become a god. And the idea is those in heaven we call saints, they have become like a god, lowercase g God. Or if we feel a bit queasy around the lowercase g word God, then we can say angel, right? The word God is used to describe angels, lowercase g, but that's another story. And you often hear, like, there's the popular depiction of when someone dies, then, like, they get wings and a halo and they become an angel. And then later on, someone will tell you, like, we don't literally become angels, we're still humans. But then, in the Orthodox Church, the explanation is, you're still a human, but functionally, you are essentially like an angel. In the Orthodox Christian tradition, there is something called the Divine Council. God does not rule this world alone, though he could. But he is very much a sharing God, and he shares his creation with his creations. He shares the governing of the creation with his creations. In the Divine Council, which he is the head of, you have the gods, the lowercase g gods, the angels, we could look at it. And there was a bit of a rebellion. Some things happened, and according to tradition, around a third of the angels fell. They became what we call demons. And when humans enter into heaven and reach theosis and become saints, we are filling in the gaps in the Divine Council. We are filling in the seats that once were occupied by the angels who fell. And by becoming like a god, by becoming like an angel, we will participate in the governing of creation. So if, when we die, we become saints, and saints are like angels, now we need to talk about what are angels in the Orthodox Christian tradition. Now, the popular image of an angel is, a person, usually a woman, with wings and a halo flying around, maybe with a sword. And that's a fair iconographic depiction of them, but we need to understand that angels literally are bodiless, in a sense. At least in a material, physical sense. They don't have a body. Father Stephen DeYoung of the Lord of Spirits podcast, who is an Antiochian Orthodox priest, usually describes angels as being vast cosmic intelligences, as the best way for us modern people to understand what angels are. They aren't omniscient like God, but they do have a sort of cognitive ability much higher beyond humans and much more vast and broad than humans. They aren't infinite, so in that sense they do have a body, they do have more clearly defined beginnings and endings, but they don't have a body like a material body. And angels are, some are used as messengers, that's literally what angel means. Others are used to govern natural forces, right? And now we also have to talk about the role of angels and demons in our thoughts in the Orthodox Christian tradition. In Orthodoxy, there is the idea of the nous. The nous is sometimes it's translated as your mind, but that's not exactly it. The Orthodox understand our thoughts to be similar to, let's put it this way. You have eyes, so you can see. They are a sensory organ. You have eyes, you can see everything around you, you can choose what you want to focus on, but you're also not creating reality around you. Your eyes are there to observe the reality around you. You have ears, and you can kind of focus your ears on what you want to listen to, but it's taking in reality around you, right? And you are not creating the reality around you. In Orthodoxy, the idea of the nous is that your, let's say, brain, although this isn't a scientific concept, but your brain is taking in thoughts. Your brain is more like a radio. Your mind is more like a radio, receiving transmissions. It is not the Orthodox traditional belief that we create our own thoughts. Ooh, It is the traditional Orthodox belief that thoughts come from outside. Just like how our eyes receive information and our ears receive information, our mind receives thoughts. And thoughts are brought to us by the spirits, by the gods, by the angels, and by the demons. To give a good illustration of this, an illustration of the nous in action, right? We might think that we create our own thoughts, but Orthodoxy disagrees with that. Have you ever stood on the top of a really high building and stood on the edge to look down and go, oh wow, that's a long way down? And then somewhere deep in the back of your mind, you hear a voice saying, hey yo, let's jump. And then it's so obviously stupid and idiotic that you go, why did I have that thought? What was up with that? What was going on with that? Why did I just have the thought, yo, jump? You know, I don't want to die, and evolutionarily speaking, that wouldn't really help the species continue if I just jumped and died. Why did I get that thought? Or let's say you're walking down the train, you're walking in a train station, the person in front of you is rushing forward, and then they drop their wallet right in front of you, and they keep walking, and you see the wallet on the ground, and at that moment, you're going, no matter how good of a person or what your morality is, there are going to be two initial thoughts that pop up immediately, right? It's like you have no control over these thoughts popping up in your brain. One thought is going to tell you that you need to, sneakily grab the wallet. Did anyone see? You can grab it, but you can use it. It's your money now. He dropped it. The other voice is going to say, hey, you should give it back to them, right? Even if you're the most greediest person, there's going to be a little blip inside your mind of, hey, pick that up and give it back to him. That's his wallet, right? And there's going to be a debate in your mind. The Orthodox tradition says that thoughts come to us from the spirits. Thoughts appear in our head, inputted there by angels or by demons. And to expand that a little bit, because the saints are functionally the same as angels, it's also thoughts can come from saints. That's not to say that you have no consciousness. The idea of the nous, just like how you can focus your eyes on something and how you can focus your ear on something, your nous can focus on, okay, I recognize that I have these ideas coming to my head. I know that I can ignore some thoughts and I can approve of some thoughts. If any of you know Stoicism, this is very much similar to the idea of assent, that you can have things pop up in your head and you have the ability to choose whether or not to let a thought affect you or not. Right, so it's very similar, if not identical, to the idea in Stoicism of assent and the power of assent. That I could let this ruin my day or I could just move on, right? So when you're standing on the roof of a building and a voice says, do it, like Emperor Palpatine's up in your voice, in your mind telling you to jump off, usually your nous has been helping you with self-preservation for so long that it's very easy to dismiss that idea. So you can receive that thought, but your nous can say no. And by your nous can say no, you are using your nous in the similar way you are using your eyes. Right, like there is the sun above me, but I can control my eyes so that I don't stare at the sun and burn out my eyes. Likewise, when you're in the train station and you see the wallet fall in, your nous has the ability to decide between those two thoughts that popped into your head. If you have a strong nous that's been trained in right and wrong, then your nous is going to be more easily able to say, I'm going to choose the option to pick it up and give it back to the guy. Now, if your nous isn't so much trained in right and wrong, and you haven't, exercised that nous muscle and that sort of choice, it might be easier for you to give into sort of lower passions and greed. It's easier to fall into, okay, then I'm going to take it. You have to train your nous to resist the bad, to do the good, in a way. Although at the same time, it is in human nature to do the good. Although we are also fallen, so it's easier to slip into the bad. Now here's a question. When you give your children presents on Christmas Day, did you yourself look at the calendar and go, I want to stick in a day where I give my children gifts and say that it's from Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker under a different name? Or did you say, hey, December 25th is Christmas, and it is part of the culture to go do this thing? Did you do it by yourself, or were there other people in the world that also gave their gifts to children on Christmas Day? When I say Santa Claus exists, and he does exist, he is Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker, and as an Orthodox Christian, I believe that Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker is alive, he is in heaven, and he is influencing the world, and you can talk to him through prayer. When I say that, I am saying that when you go out to the store, find a present your child will like, buy it, wrap it up, and write "from Santa Claus" on the box, and then put it under that Christmas tree. It is literally from Santa Claus. Does Santa Claus have a material body in this current living realm? No. But do Orthodox Christians believe that this current life in this material reality is all there is? No. In the Orthodox framework, can a person, once dead, still have an influence on the living material world? Yes. I believe that Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker is playing a role in all of our nooses, inputting the thought of giving gifts on Christmas. Why? Because Saint Nicholas is a gift giver. That's what he does. That is the attribute of reality that he has fit into in God's plan. Was he ever literally a fat white guy in a red suit drinking Coca-Cola? No. But also you need to understand that ancient people didn't understand Thor to literally be this buff guy holding a hammer. Ancient people didn't literally believe that Zeus was a buff old guy on the top of Mount Olympus, right? These were symbolic. Zeus being macho meant that he was powerful. Him being old meant that he was wise. Him living on the top of Mount Olympus, a mountain that Greeks could just climb up and look around and not materially see Zeus's body, that represents his authority over the world in ancient Greek mythology, because he's on a high place that can see everywhere. Just so, the idea of Santa Claus being a jolly fat guy in a red suit with elves in the North Pole is symbolic. It's iconographic. It has a deeper meaning. But because that's symbolic doesn't mean it's not. That doesn't mean that he's not literally doing what the church says he's doing and affecting the nooses of people. Inputting thoughts, right? And he is commemorating gift giving on the date in which the church commemorates the nativity of Jesus Christ, right? Let's be honest, if there wasn't a gift-giving attribute of Christmas, would people remember Christmas as well, or would it become something like Easter, where it's sort of like, oh yeah, there's Easter? By Saint Nicholas perpetuating the gift-giving culture of Christmas, he is perpetuating the remembrance of the feast of the nativity of the Lord Jesus Christ. You know, and even non-Christian societies can appreciate what Christmas is, about bringing the family together, about loving each other, sharing gifts, right? I live in Japan, and in Japan, Christmas is a kind of a big holiday. It's not a get a day off of work holiday, but it is one of the popular holidays here. And people do come together as families. Gifts are given. Children are happy. And you hear Christmas songs in early November. See, in America you have Thanksgiving there as like a buffer between Halloween and Christmas. So you can at least hold off on Christmas music until Thanksgiving is over. Japan doesn't have an important Thanksgiving holiday, so the moment Halloween ends, it's in Christmas mode. My local mall had a Halloween tree, like a Christmas tree, but decorated for Halloween, and it's obvious that they just did that so the moment November 1st rolls around, they can take off the Halloween decorations and put up the Christmas decorations. And you hear Christmas songs over the radio, not just, like Mariah Carey, but also some more religious Christmas songs. In what world? Think about the insanity of the idea of walking around Japan, a non-Christian country with a history of persecution against Christians, playing the first Noel commemorating the Nativity of Christ over the radio. Now, yes, I recognize that there is a sort of negative side effect. There is a heavy capitalist element of reducing human relationships to monetary value. There is problems with elevating Santa Claus as a more iconic symbol of Christmas than the Nativity of Christ, which is what it's about, yes. I recognize that there is a big Coca-Cola psyop to get us to buy Coca-Cola in December. It's not going to be perfect. We live in a fallen world with people with fallen natures, but that doesn't mean that the saints aren't working to try to make the world the best they can, and we need to cooperate with them. But just like how the saints and angels are active in the world, so are the demons. The demons in your mind telling you that, oh, this person didn't give me a gift of this monetary value, which means they're bad, right? That is a demon of greed. The spirit entering the mind of a Coca-Cola CEO guy saying, hey, this is the feast of the birth of Christ, but let's monetize it to sell unhealthy drink products. That is a demon. When people have when there's a really popular toy and people fight each other in the store to get the gift for their child, the violence, that is a demon. But the silver lining, the light in the darkness, is that Saint Nicholas is there. Saint Nicholas is supporting the good in Christmas. It can be very easy to focus on the bad parts of Christmas, but we can't ignore that there are good parts of Christmas. And Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, plays a role in that. And to wrap this all up like a Christmas gift, that is why, ladies and gentlemen, Santa Claus does exist from the Orthodox Christian perspective. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you guys have an excellent Saint Nicholas Day, and later on a good Christmas, a very Merry Christmas. Check out my channel for more history and lore. This episode was much more of a lore-focused video. Consider subscribing to the channel if you have not yet. Follow me on social media, especially Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. All the links are in the description. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.